This artist book is created in part response to a PhD project about using gold to create wonder in the contemporary artist book. There were 3 central research questions, and this artist book responds to one of those questions, although is not an answer to it. As you can see, this book is in the form of a matchbox, and that is because there is a tradition in artist books for democratising art. Ed Ruscha and co in the 1960s wanted to take art off gallery walls and put it at supermarket checkout so that everybody could buy a piece of art and it would be cheap enough to buy and they could take it away with them. So this item, a matchbox, is an everyday item. It's a humble item. Everybody could have one. It's portable, which is one of the qualities of an artist book, or can be. It is small in scale, so you could put it in your pocket. And it is cheap enough to drop and lose, which is part of an important phrase that I always refer to, which is cheap enough to drop and lose and precious enough to keep forever. The outside of the matchbox is covered in book cloth as a nod towards traditional bookmaking. I noticed that a matchbox has the dimensions of a book on a shelf, and so I've emulated that a little bit by putting the information about the artist book as if it were a book cover with the title and the details. It is an artist book, but it's also derived from a matchbox, and so I've used sandpaper to emulate the strike strip down the side. And this is to aid the imagination, because we expect matches to be inside and we expect to be able to light them and for them to flare into dazzling light. The colours I've chosen for the exterior of the work are very dull, and these are to create a scene out of which can spring forth the brightness of the light. So inside the box we expect to find matches, okay, and they're going to come out of a very dark exterior, and that is partly because I've been very influenced by an essay by Tanizaki called In Praise of Shadows, where he talks about the use of gold in Eastern cultures, particularly for things like gold flecks in lacquered furniture, where that furniture was never meant to be seen in a brightly lit or electrically lit room. It was always meant to be seen in a dull room lit by candlelight, where the gold flecks in the furniture would gleam out of the darkness. And similarly, icon painters, using gold leaf on their icons, knew that those icons would only ever really be seen by candlelight where they would be positioned. So inside the matchbox, you slide the tray, you follow the habitual steps of a matchbox where we slide out the tray and we take out the matches. The matches are here not to strike, but to aid the imagination. And one thing that I found in studying artists' books is that they react hugely with the imagination, so that when we open an artist's book, our imagination situates us within it, and we correspond with the components of it, and our imagination does the work. So they are to remind us of flame and fire and brightness and what is inside a dark exterior, this dark scene set, just like in Tanizaki's essay. There's also a little artist's book inside the matchbox, and this is emulating the form of a matchbook, keeping with the theme, although I have changed the proportions to fit inside the tray of the matchbox. There is book thread and a very simple book stitch here, and I have bound and reinforced the spine and the corners, again to emulate the idea of traditional bookmaking. All of these are perishable materials, and this has a reference to ideas from wabi-sabi, which is the Japanese aesthetic of impermanence and of things changing as they age, and there being a beauty to the story of that change. So all of these are cheap enough to drop and lose. They're perishable materials, they're humble materials. And that is there to contrast with what's inside, which is going to be 24 karat gold. So here it is. When we open the book, there should be a surprise. I've used 24 karat gold here, which is the point of this research question. All my maquettes were using Dutch gold, which is imitation, and it dazzled and it looked fantastic until I made one with 24 karat gold, and then the difference was evident. This one has a much, much, much deeper luster to it. Part of my research showed that the reflective surface, the highly reflective surface of gold, is intensified when it reflects off other surfaces of gold. So this highly folded form is meant to create pockets and facets for the light to bounce off, and a whole cave of dazzling gold inside. I tried it with different coloured backgrounds and found that black was the most effective. It somehow gave it a sense of mystery and a more intensified effect. With the folding, the interior of the book is 3 times larger than its exterior area. And that's important as well, because the idea of surprise and something that is extraordinary and out of the ordinary and unexpected is assisted by that sense of scale there. And lastly, the idea of moment is important in this work. So in our everyday lives, we might have a matchbox and time ticks along, and artist books have a special capacity to play with time, to handle time, to arrest time. And when we strike a match, there is that flare, that ember-like dazzling light, and for a second we are mesmerised and time stops still. And I wanted to emulate this with gold, to create that sense of wonder and fascination out of something so ordinary, and to arrest time just for a second, and to give the viewers of this film a moment of wonder and awe.